Close your eyes for a moment and let the world you know grow very still. Imagine the sound of deep water, not crashing, not roaring, just the slow, dark breathing of the ocean at night. Tonight, we are going back to the beginning of spring in the year 1912. The air smells of coal smoke and salt. The docks at Southampton are alive, impossibly, wonderfully alive, with noise and colour and the shuffling of 1,000 lives. It is the 10th of April, and something extraordinary is about to leave the shore. She is enormous. That is the only word that truly fits. Standing on the dock and looking up at her hull is like standing at the base of a cliff and wondering if it goes all the way to heaven. Her name is painted across her stern in clean, proud letters, Titanic, named for the Titans of ancient Greek myth, those vast primordial beings who shaped the world before the world had learned to be small. She is 882 feet long. Her funnels rise so high into the April sky that the gulls have to think twice before circling them. She weighs more than 52,000 tons, and she has been built, every rivet, every plank of polished wood, every silk curtain and gilded railing, to be the most magnificent thing that has ever floated upon water. She is the second of 3 sister ships built by Harland and Wolff, a great shipyard in Belfast in Ireland, where for 3 years she was hammered into existence by the hands of thousands of working men. Her designers, Lord Pirrie, Thomas Andrews, Edward Wilding, bent over drawings and calculations in lamplit offices, turning dreams into mathematics and mathematics into steel. It cost £3 million to build her. In today's money, you might imagine a small country's treasury. And now, on this cool April morning, she is ready. The passengers come aboard in their thousands, more than 2,000 of them. Let us walk among them for a while, softly, the way you wander through a dream. Up in first class, the world is hushed and golden. The grand staircase sweeps downward beneath a glass dome, its banisters carved in the French style, warm amber light pouring over the pale oak panels. There is a gymnasium on board, with the very latest mechanical horses and rowing machines. There is a Turkish bath, tiles of deep blue and green, steam curling in the lantern light, the scent of cedar and warm stone. There is a swimming pool filled with salt water, glowing faintly in the electric light. There are smoking rooms lined in dark mahogany and mother-of-pearl inlay, where men sit deep in leather chairs and watch the foam of their passing through the portholes. The Café Parisien is dressed like a Parisian boulevard in spring, wicker chairs, climbing trellises, the illusion of an afternoon in France brought somehow across the water. In the first-class dining saloon, the tables are set with the finest china, with crystal glasses that catch the light like little chandeliers, with silverware engraved with the White Star flag, and the people who move through these rooms. A woman in a cream-coloured gown, pearls at her throat, writing a letter home at the reading room's long window, watching the grey-green ocean slide past. 2 men in evening dress, debating the merits of the new Cunard ships over cigars. A child, maybe 7 or 8, running down a long corridor and being caught, laughing, by a steward in white. These are some of the wealthiest people in the world. There are industrialists, heirs, socialites, a member of the British Parliament, artists, the chairman of the White Star Line himself, J. Bruce Ismay, travelling to oversee his grandest achievement. But the Titanic is not only a palace. Let us walk deeper into the ship, down the long passageway the crew have nicknamed Scotland Road, named after a famous street in Liverpool, where the world is a little louder, a little warmer, a little more full of life. Here are the third-class passengers, hundreds of families from Ireland, from Sweden, from Finland, from the south of England, men and women who have packed everything they own into a single trunk and are carrying their futures with them across the Atlantic. They are heading to America, to Canada, to a new beginning. Their children run between the bunks, their voices bright and quick. Someone has brought a fiddle. Someone else is teaching their neighbour a card game in a language the neighbour doesn't quite speak yet. They eat together in the third-class dining saloon, modest but warm, with long tables and simple food, and the kind of noise that means people are, at least for now, content. It is a better journey than most of them have ever taken, and above all of them, in his cabin at the front of the ship sits Captain Edward John Smith. He is 62 years old, silver-bearded, with the unhurried bearing of a man who has crossed the Atlantic so many times that the ocean is simply his backyard. This is to be his final voyage. He had planned to retire, one last crossing, then home. He stands at the window of the bridge and watches the coast of England fall slowly behind, growing smaller, growing haze-coloured, then disappearing altogether into the grey. The ship moves westward. For 4 days, the crossing is everything it promised to be. The ocean is unusually calm, a glassy, gentle calm that makes even seasoned sailors remark upon it. The sky is clear. The food is exquisite. In the evenings, the first-class lounge fills with music and soft conversation, the sound of laughter drifting down the corridors. In third class, the fiddle plays on. Somewhere in second class, a man named Lawrence Beasley reads by lamplight, perfectly at ease, thinking to himself that this is, without doubt, the most comfortable voyage he has ever taken. On the night of the 14th of April, it is cold, genuinely, startlingly cold, the kind of cold that comes off the deep Atlantic in spring, when the air has swept down from the north and brought with it news of ice. The sea is flat and black and still, with hardly a ripple. The stars are impossibly bright, thousands of them, reflected perfectly in the water, so that the ship seems to float between two skies. In the Marconi room, the radio operators have been receiving messages all day from other ships. Ice warnings. There is a great field of ice further ahead, icebergs carved from the glaciers of Greenland, drifting slowly south on the Labrador Current. The warnings have been passed to the bridge. Captain Smith holds his course. The ship is running fast, nearly 22 knots. This was not uncommon. The wireless was still a new thing, and the full weight of what those warnings meant had not yet settled into the rhythms of how ships were sailed. In the crow's nest, 2 lookouts, Frederick Fleet and Reginald Lee, stand in the bitter dark, their breath misting in the starlight. They have no binoculars. They have only their eyes and the extraordinary stillness of the night. It is 20 minutes to midnight. Fleet sees something in the darkness ahead, a shape, a shadow, a darkness within the darkness, growing slowly, growing fast. He rings the bell 3 times. He picks up the telephone. "Iceberg right ahead." The word comes down to the bridge. The wheel turns hard to starboard. The engines reverse. The great ship begins slowly to swing, too slowly, too slowly. And for a moment, it almost seems as though she might miss. She doesn't miss. There is no tremendous crash, no shattering sound, just a long, grinding shudder, like something scraping along the hull far below the waterline. And then silence. To many passengers, it sounds like nothing more than a rumble, a vibration, nothing to worry about. Some don't even wake. A few first-class passengers come out of their cabins into the corridor, curious, mildly amused. Someone spots a small pile of ice on the forward deck and throws pieces of it at a friend, laughing. But below, where the water lives, it is not quiet at all. The iceberg has opened 5 of the ship's 16 watertight compartments. Thomas Andrews, the ship's chief architect, the man who knew her better than anyone alive, goes below to look. He takes measurements. He does the calculations. He comes back up to find Captain Smith. He tells him the truth. Titanic can float with 4 compartments flooded. She cannot float with 5. She will sink. In perhaps 2 hours. Maybe less. Let us slow down here. Let us breathe. There is something I want to hold in mind in this quiet telling of the story, something that sits alongside the tragedy, and that is the small, still moments of those hours, the moments of grace. An orchestra, 8 musicians, gathered on the deck and began to play. They played waltzes, hymns, ragtime, whatever they knew. They played not because anyone had told them to. but because it was, perhaps, the only useful thing left to do. The music drifted out across the flat black water, warm against the cold. A wireless operator named Jack Phillips sat at his transmitter and sent out the new distress signal, CQD, then SOS, into the darkness, over and over, his fingers steady on the key. He kept sending long after he needed to. Men helped women and children into lifeboats, stepping back from the rails when the boats were lowered. There is a famous story, true or not it has endured, of the two gentlemen who sat down in the first-class smoking room with a brandy and a deck of cards and said quietly that they supposed this was as good a way as any to spend the time. There were failures too that night. The lifeboats were lowered too early, too empty. 20 lifeboats, carrying an average of only 60% of what they could have held. There were enough lifeboat spaces for 1,178 people. On the water, in those boats, there were far fewer. The Carpathia, another ship, received the distress call and turned immediately, pushing through the night at full speed. But she was 58 miles away. At 2:20 in the morning, the Titanic was gone. She broke apart near the surface, the bow separating from the stern, and the two halves fell separately into the dark. They descended 2.5 miles to the ocean floor, each half striking the bottom at considerable speed. The bow crumpled at the front, but remained largely whole, its grand staircase still standing inside, silt drifting where the chandelier once hung. The stern collapsed entirely, the decks folding down upon each other like the pages of a closed book, and there, in the cold and the dark, she settled. For 73 years, no one knew exactly where. Then, on the 1st of September 1985, a joint French and American expedition led by Jean-Louis Michel and Robert Ballard found her. Their cameras, moving through the absolute darkness of the deep ocean, picked out first a piece of debris, a boiler, then a trail of objects scattered across the seabed like the trail of a comet, and then the bow, rising out of the silt, encrusted with rust, draped in long orange icicles of oxidized iron that the scientists called rusticles, still recognizably herself, still, somehow, majestic. Around her for 3 nautical miles in every direction, the debris field spreads, hundreds of thousands of objects, china plates still stacked, copper pots, a child's shoe, a leather suitcase half open, pairs of boots laid neatly by the current, marking places where people came to rest, chandeliers, a brass compass, wine bottles, their corks still sealed. The ocean kept them all perfectly still, in the cold and the dark and the quiet. A digital survey in the summer of 2022 mapped every millimetre of the wreck, 715,000 three-dimensional images assembled into a complete picture of what remains. The captain's bathtub, seen in earlier footage, was by that point gone, claimed at last by the slow work of the sea. The iron of the hull is being consumed very gradually by bacteria, tiny living things that have found a way to eat the ship, molecule by molecule. One day, scientists believe, there will be nothing left but a deep red stain in the sediment and the scattered remnants of things the ocean cannot digest: porcelain, glass, the soles of shoes. There is something in that image that is not sad if you hold it gently enough. The sea taking back what was made from the earth, the slow return of everything. 1,500 people died on that night in April. The names are recorded, the stories have been told and retold, and will go on being told. And from the disaster, the world changed how it thought about sailing. New regulations, new requirements for enough lifeboats for every soul on board, new ice patrols, new distress protocols, new humility in the face of the ocean. The Titanic, named for the gods of the ancient world, taught the modern world something the ancient world already knew, that the sea belongs to itself, that nothing built by human hands is beyond the reach of the dark water. But tonight, in this quiet, in this warmth, in the safety of wherever you are resting, let the story soften. Let it become what it truly is now, after all these years. A dream, a great, strange, beautiful dream, sealed away in the deep. Imagine the bow of the ship resting on the ocean floor, 2.5 miles below the surface of the world. There is no sound down there. Not really. Just the occasional creak of settling metal and the soft movements of the deep-sea creatures that have made the wreck their home. Pale fish drifting through empty corridors, anemones flowering in the darkness where the smoking room windows once looked out at the sea. The silt is soft. The water is still. Above, if you could rise through 2 miles of cold Atlantic water, through layers of blue darkening to black and back to blue, you would eventually break the surface and find the stars. The same stars that looked down on the ship that night. Orion standing on the horizon, the Pleiades, the slow wheel of the night sky, and higher still, or perhaps no distance at all, is the warm place where you are lying now, breathing slowly, letting the story go. Let it drift. The Titanic sleeps in the deep water. The ocean keeps its silence. The stars do their ancient, unhurried work. And you are here, and the world is quiet, and there is nothing at all that needs doing tonight. Just rest now. Just rest.